The West Australian Premier Colin Barnett has declared his government's intentions to push forward with the closure of up to half the remote Aboriginal communities in the state. Demolition is already underway in some communities, displacing community members and prompting widespread criticism.
Colin Barnett has said that small remote communities are breeding grounds for abuse and are set for closure. Echoing the justification of the 2007 Northern Territory intervention, he blamed these communities, saying they contributed to high suicide rates and provided few opportunities.
I don't accept for a minute that the answer to the service delivery for Aboriginal people is closing down communities and demanding that Aboriginal people move to other locations. This has all been done in the past. We saw what happened in the 60s when we tried all this, and it ended in disaster.
Ben Wyatt was joined by member for Kimberley Josie Farah, who this week tabled a bill seeking recognition for Aboriginal people in the WA Constitution. Both were wary of the Barnett government's process.
What this is a government that's given up. It's given up on its remote communities, it's given up on service delivery, it's given up fighting Canberra in the federal government taking on its quite rightful role in providing support for those remote communities. And we find the Premier turning on those Aboriginal people, saying we can no longer afford to provide services to you.
The closure of communities is set to displace thousands of citizens from the most remote regions of the country, pushing people from central WA to Alice Springs in the NT. Northern Territory Palmer United Party MLA Alison Anderson has also criticised the decision, saying the WA government is not only creating a problem for itself, but for the NT and South Australia as well.
This is not a solution, and I warn the Premier, I warn the Cabinet and all Western Australians, be very, very, very critical of this line that the Premier is taking, because we've been here before and it ended up in tragedy and disaster, and if we follow this again in this thought bubble, chaotic way, that's what will happen again.
If the cycle of poverty and neglect are to be stopped, is this new approach from the WA government really that different from what has occurred in the past? Quartermaine, NITV News.